I had been using Tinder for a while and had grown accustomed to the occasional weird or awkward encounter. But nothing could have prepared me for the horror I experienced when I matched with a nun. At first, I was hesitant to swipe right on her profile. After all, I had never matched with someone in religious garb before. But something about her kind smile and warm eyes drew me in, and I found myself swiping right without a second thought. We started chatting and quickly hit it off. She was witty and charming, and we had a lot in common. We talked about our hobbies, our families, and our aspirations for the future. It all seemed so normal and innocent. But things took a strange turn when we decided to meet in person. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my apartment, and I arrived a few minutes early, eagerly anticipating our first face-to-face encounter. As I waited for her, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. What would it be like to meet someone who had devoted her life to serving God? Would she be judgmental or distant? My questions were soon answered when I saw her walking towards me. She was dressed in her habit, with a rosary hanging from her waist. She looked just like her pictures, but something about her presence was unsettling. We ordered our drinks and sat down at a table in the corner of the cafe. I tried to make small talk, but her responses were short and cryptic. She seemed preoccupied, as if she had something important to say but couldn't quite find the words. Suddenly, she leaned in close and whispered, "I have a confession to make." I was taken aback. What could she possibly have to confess to me, a stranger she had just met on a dating app? "I'm not really a nun," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I'm a demon in disguise. And I've been sent here to destroy you." I felt a chill run down my spine. This had to be some kind of sick joke, right? But as I looked into her eyes, I saw something that made me believe her. Something dark and otherworldly. I tried to get up from my seat, but she grabbed my arm with a strength I didn't know she possessed. "You can't escape me," she hissed. "I've already marked you as my prey." I don't remember how I managed to break free from her grasp, but I stumbled out of the cafe and ran as fast as I could back to my apartment. I locked the door behind me and sat on my bed, shaking and sobbing. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I was haunted by the memory of the demon nun and the feeling of her cold, bony hand on my arm. I knew I would never be able to forget what had happened, and that Tinder would never be the same for me again. As I sat on my bed, still trembling with fear, I couldn't help but wonder how I could have been so naive. How had I not seen the signs that she was a demon in disguise? Had I been blinded by her charming profile pictures and witty banter? Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new notification from Tinder. It was a message from the demon nun. "I hope you're not mad at me," she wrote. "I was just messing with you. I thought it would be funny." My heart raced with anger and disbelief. How could she think that scaring someone half to death was a joke? But before I could reply, another message came in. This one was from a different Tinder match, a man with a profile picture of a clown. "Hey there! I saw you matched with Sister Mary Scary. She's a bit of a prankster, but she means well. You should see some of the things she's done to me." My jaw dropped. Was this some kind of twisted dating app game, where people pretended to be demons and clowns and other horrifying creatures? I tried to delete my Tinder account, but every time I clicked the delete button, a new match would pop up. A ghost. A werewolf. A witch. I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, where every swipe brought me closer to a new terror. And yet, somehow, I couldn't stop swiping. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I lost track of time as I swiped through a never-ending parade of monsters and ghouls. Sometimes they would message me, taunting me with their demonic laughter. Other times they would simply disappear, leaving me to wonder if they were real or just figments of my imagination. Eventually, I realized that I was no longer living in the real world. I had become a prisoner of Tinder, trapped in a limbo of horror and comedy. And yet, even in my darkest moments, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. How had I gone from swiping right on normal-looking people to matching with a demon nun and a clown? I may never escape the horrors of Tinder, but at least I can say that I survived the scariest dating app of all time. And who knows? Maybe one day I'll meet someone who's just as weird and wonderful as me. Or maybe I'll just keep swiping and laughing until the end of time. As the days went on, the monsters on Tinder became more and more terrifying. I matched with a vampire who claimed to have been alive for centuries, a ghost who haunted an abandoned house, and a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a human. Every time I swiped, I felt like I was playing a dangerous game. I knew that one wrong move could lead me into the arms of a monster, but I couldn't resist the thrill of the chase. And then, one night, I matched with a girl who seemed different from the rest. Her profile picture was normal, just a smiling face with blonde hair. But something about her eyes made me pause. I messaged her, and we hit it off right away. She was funny, smart, and easy to talk to. We had a lot in common, and I found myself looking forward to our first date. We agreed to meet at a bar downtown, and I arrived early to make sure everything was perfect. As I waited for her, I felt a sense of unease creeping up on me. What if she was secretly a monster, like all the others? But when she walked in, my fears disappeared. She looked even better in person than in her pictures, and her smile lit up the room. We talked and laughed for hours, and I felt like I had finally found someone I could connect with on a real level. But as the night wore on, I began to notice something strange. Every time I looked into her eyes, I saw a flicker of darkness. A shadow that seemed to lurk just beneath the surface. At first, I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just my imagination, or the effect of the dim lighting in the bar. But as the night went on, the feeling grew stronger. And then, when we were walking back to my car, she turned to me with a sly grin on her face. "You know what's funny?" she said. "I'm not really a girl. I'm a demon, just like all the others you've matched with on Tinder." My heart stopped. Had I fallen for it again? Had I been so blinded by my desire for connection that I had missed the signs? But before I could react, she lunged at me with a speed and strength that was inhuman. I felt her sharp teeth sinking into my neck, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was alone in a dark alleyway. My neck was throbbing with pain, and I could feel the warmth of blood trickling down my skin. I stumbled back to my car and drove home, my mind reeling with terror. I knew that I had to delete Tinder and never look back, but a part of me couldn't help wondering. What if there was someone out there who was just as lonely and desperate as me? What if they were still swiping, still hoping to find someone real in a world full of monsters? As I lay in bed that night, nursing my wounds and trying to make sense of what had happened, I realized that the scariest thing about Tinder wasn't the monsters themselves. It was the fact that we were all playing a game that we couldn't win. A game where the stakes were life and death, and the monsters were all too real. I swore to myself that I would never use Tinder again after my encounter with the demon. But as the weeks passed by, my loneliness started to creep back in, and I found myself wondering if there was someone out there who could make me forget about my fears. One night, after a few too many drinks, I found myself swiping again. The faces blurred together in my mind, until I came across a profile that made me do a double take. It was a picture of a nun, but not just any nun. She had a mischievous glint in her eye, and a sly grin on her lips. She was like no nun I had ever seen before. I laughed to myself at the absurdity of it all, and swiped right. To my surprise, we matched instantly. Within moments, she was messaging me, and I found myself caught up in a flurry of excitement. She was funny and clever, and we had a great time chatting back and forth. But as the conversation wore on, I started to notice something strange. Her messages started to become more and more flirtatious, until I felt like I was in the middle of a romantic comedy. And then, out of nowhere, she sent me a message that made my blood run cold. "I want to kiss you," she wrote. My heart started to race as I read the message over and over again. This was not what I had signed up for. I had been hoping for someone to talk to, not some crazy nun who wanted to jump my bones. But before I could even reply, she was sending me more messages. Her words were getting more and more explicit, until I felt like I was in the middle of a horror movie. I tried to back out, to tell her that I wasn't interested, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. She started sending me pictures of herself in her nun's habit, her face twisted into a maniacal grin. I felt like I was trapped, like I had stumbled into a nightmare from which there was no escape. The more I tried to push her away, the more desperate she became. In the end, I had to delete my account just to get away from her. I never wanted to use Tinder again, not after what I had been through. But a small part of me couldn't help but wonder. What if there was someone out there who could make me forget about my fears? What if there was someone out there who was just as lonely and desperate as me? As I lay in bed that night, my heart racing with fear and excitement, I realized that the scariest thing about Tinder wasn't the monsters or the crazies. It was the fact that it was all too easy to get caught up in a world that was both thrilling and dangerous. A world where the line between reality and fantasy blurred, and where anything could happen. As I was about to delete my Tinder account and swear off dating apps forever, I heard a knock at my door. It was the nun. She had somehow found out where I lived. Before I could react, she burst into my house, wearing nothing but her habit. I was simultaneously horrified and amused. She looked ridiculous running around my living room, her habit flapping in the air like a bird's wings. She kept saying she wanted to kiss me and I kept backing away, trying to find something to protect myself with. That's when I noticed my cat staring at her intently, as if it was about to pounce. I saw my chance and threw the cat at her. The nun let out a blood-curdling scream and ran out of my house, still naked, with my cat clinging to her habit like a little demon. I never heard from her again, but every time I look at my cat, I can't help but chuckle at the thought of it attacking a naked nun. I guess I'll have to stick to traditional dating methods from now on.